name is Devin, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This video, I'm going to be talking about my experience taking and preparing for the CFA Level 1 exam. Things I did well preparing for the exam, and things that I can improve upon for Level 2. And hopefully I can share some of the pitfalls that I experienced so that you don't have to experience them. For the exam, I bought the Kaplan Schweser notes. I bought the premium package, so it had everything: on-demand classes, on-demand review workshops, notes, quizzes, a whole learning management system. So it was the complete package. I paid about $899 for this, plus tax and shipping, so my final cost came out to be almost exactly $1,000. And I'd say that it was a great baseline package. It gave me everything I could have asked for. From what I would have initially wanted, right? I wanted some on-demand instruction, some on-demand classes. I didn't pay extra for like live classes or anything like that because most likely I felt like they weren't going to fit with my schedule. But they did give me a condensed version of all of the material I needed to learn, a sort of calendar to follow. And so I felt like, as long as I followed this, I'd be in good standing and I would probably pass the exam. I will say though that the notes were in some areas a little lacking. There were some questions I ended up looking at later on in the CFA material that the notes hadn't even covered. And this was a bit disappointing. I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning for this was, whether the Kaplan instructors forgot, they hadn't updated the notes, or if they felt like it wasn't worth the time or the energy input from a student, and maybe that the exam wouldn't actually cover it this much. The course came with an online learning management system, which was what you would expect from a modern day, course, especially something that's self-study and at home. But one of the disappointing things was that there were times where the website was completely down, either for like a few hours or like an entire day. Another problem I had with the learning management system was that you couldn't double speed the videos. You couldn't adjust the playback speed to 1.5x or 2x or 2.5x if you wanted to get through a video faster. And this kind of dragged on me a little bit. Some of the videos were a little slow, and I wanted to make sure I watched the whole video. I didn't want to just skip it in case I missed something important. But I felt like I could have gone a little faster, and this kind of slowed me down. To be honest, I didn't do much research when I picked Kaplan. I had a couple other friends who had also signed up for the CFA, and they mentioned Kaplan Schweser. They mentioned Kaplan, and which is a lot easier to say. And I just kind of went with it. I didn't really do much research. I thought it was the top of the line. But looking back on it, I wish I had looked at who the other test prep providers are, what they provided, and seen if those are better fits. Because there was a lot of things in the Kaplan stuff that I didn't end up using that I could have saved money on. But with that being said, it was my first time, so it's not necessarily the case that I would have known exactly beforehand what I used and what I wouldn't use. As an example of something I didn't use, there were all these review workshops at the end that, again, you couldn't 1.5x or 2.5x through, so I ended up just skipping them because I felt like they were an inefficient use of my time with just a few weeks left to study. But one thing I did use was The Secret Sauce, which is a super cool book and a super cool name for it. They've sort of condensed all of the information and summarized it Cliff Note style so that you can just power through it and really review things. And so what I ended up doing the last week or two was just reading The Secret Sauce and then going to the CFA Institute's learning ecosystem and using their questions. And I felt like this was a great way to prepare for the exam for me, and it really made me comfortable for exam day. I didn't realize going in was that the CFA themselves were going to give me a learning ecosystem. So I kind of bought the Kaplan thing and signed up for the exam without actually seeing that by signing up for the exam, I also got something very similar to what Kaplan gave me. Now, it's not the same. I will say that the Kaplan notes are a little easier to get through, a little bit more condensed. They've also got the videos, which the CFA learning ecosystem doesn't have. Even if you don't use the CFA learning ecosystems, notes or study planner, definitely use their questions and definitely incorporate them earlier on into your studies, because the earlier you do it, the more used to you will be to the questions, the less shocked you'll be at the difficulty, because I do think that their questions are a bit harder than the Kaplan questions. Going into level 2, I'm going to make a big change, and that's I'm going to ditch Kaplan and I'm going to go with Mark Meldrum. Now, I've seen some of Mark Meldrum's content on YouTube, and it is fantastic. I think the biggest difference between Mark and the instructors at Kaplan and the content at Kaplan is that the content at Kaplan leans towards procedural, whereas Mark is more conceptual. Procedural knowledge is just kind of like memorizing a formula or just knowing the steps, not really knowing why those steps are taken. Conceptual knowledge is knowing, okay, yeah, those steps exist, but also knowing how you got there, why those steps are important, why that concept is important, how these concepts relate to each other. I think this is really important, and I think this is an area where Kaplan is not as strong in. They do it sometimes. It's not all the time that they ask you to memorize a formula, but there are some times where they'll just throw a formula out there and you feel like you have to memorize it and you don't even know why you're memorizing it. And this really bothers me. I feel like when you just memorize a procedure or a formula, you're really not understanding the concept. And me personally, I never signed up for the CFA to get the title. I wanted to learn all the content behind it and become a really good financial analyst. And I think that's what Mark does, right? Now, I haven't taken his full course, but I will say, with all of the free content I've seen on YouTube, he's really trying to get you to understand the concept, get you to relate that concept to other things, and really make you a good analyst, which is really what I want out of it. And I have a good feeling that if you understand all the concepts, you understand how they all relate to each other, you're going to do pretty well in the exam too. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And if you're, related to Kaplan or Schweser, I'm sorry for not choosing you next time. And I'm also sorry for mispronouncing your name if you are Schweser. Everyone, my name is Devin, and today these arms look weird.